And so Dajjal is going to amass wealth. And there are those who are going to follow him for his wealth, instead of being faithful to Allah and His Messenger. You can buy them. And you can buy them with the wealth that you have, Dajjal. What is the strategy that he uses to amass this huge amount of wealth and to then use that wealth as power, to use that wealth to be able to make progress with his mission to rule the world? That wealth is power, and if I have wealth, I can rule. And those who do not have wealth can be enslaved. And when they are enslaved, they cannot offer any resistance to my rule. So what is the strategy by which he amasses all of this wealth? We know about riba. Yeah. That the money lender, when he lends you money on interest, does not always lend you money on interest so that he will become rich. If you have read John Perkins' book, John Perkins, thank Allah that he wrote the book. People would not have believed me, but now it's there. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Try to get that book and read it. Then you would know that the money lender sometimes lends you money on interest in order to enslave you. And so the banking system around the world, with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund at its heart, and the commercial banking interests, with which now, unfortunately, Islamic banks are also forming a part of it, so-called Islamic banks, have played and are still playing a very important role in Dajjal's strategy of enslaving the masses around the world. But that's not our topic tonight. Our topic is the river Euphrates and a mountain of gold. And before we attempt the subject, I have to tell you that your brother Imran graduated in 1971 from the Alimia Institute of Islamic Studies in Karachi, Pakistan. My teacher and the head of the institution was Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah. And when I was leaving Pakistan, having done the degree in Islamic Studies and also a master's degree in philosophy from Karachi University, he said to me, Imran, I want you to go back home and I want your hand to be like this and not like this. Meaning, I want you to get a job and earn your own livelihood. Because he says, I know the character of the ummah today. He who pays the piper calls the tune. So I went back home and I applied for a job in the foreign ministry. And they interviewed me and they said, yes, we'd love to have you in the foreign ministry, but we want you to go back to the university and do a postgraduate diploma in international relations. And I got a chance to study international economics, and in particular international monetary economics. And because I took the Quran with me in the classroom, of course in my heart, I had an advantage over all the others. So remember that when you have your children, eh? Remember that with your children, as you educate your children. That I had in the classroom with me a fellow with a master's degree from the London School of Economics. And people from French universities, and British universities, and Canadian universities, American universities. And they were all looking down at this poor Pakistani degree. He has a degree from Pakistan. He studied Islam. What can he do? But at the end of the year, in the final year exams, I came first in the class. They didn't laugh that time. No. And in the examination of international economics, I beat the fella who had a master's degree from the London School of Economics. It was not just intelligence, it was not just hard work on my part, it was more than that. It was the Quran. It was because I had studied the Quran before coming to the classroom. But that was 1972, 40 years ago. It has taken me 40 years to understand now, today, what I studied then, and to be able to understand and penetrate this hadith about the river Euphrates and gold. Because I studied international monetary economics 40 years ago. I studied the Bretton Woods Accord. I studied the International Monetary Fund. I studied the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund. And I monitored international monetary economics over these last 40 years. And despite the fact that I had the Quran with me, I still could not understand what I now understand. Still could not. And so I could never make sense of this hadith until events had unfolded. And India declared, when the United States imposed the embargo, financial relations on Iran, banking system, and then the European community followed suit. You know about it. In order to choke Iran, that Iran cannot sell its oil. And then India responded. It was an embarrassment to me that Hindu India would respond what no Muslim government dared to do. None. These are supposed to be our leaders, and these are the ones you go and you vote for in elections? India said to Iran, let's talk. And Iran agreed to sell oil for gold. And India agreed to pay for oil with gold, thus bypassing the American embargo and the European, the Zionist embargo. Russia and China are also following suit. And so, in consequence of what they did, we are now witnessing, we are now on the verge of witnessing the end of something called the petrodollar. And I never understood until now the JAL strategy. But before we proceed, why did it take Iran, which is an Islamic revolution? The Shia are proud that they have an Islamic republic. Pakistan used to have an Islamic republic before it became an American republic. So why did it take Iran so many years since the revolution to understand the role of gold as money? Why? This actually is evidence of the dismal failure of Shia Islamic scholarship. The only ones who are worse off than the Shia in their Islamic scholarship is us, we, the Sunnis. Because at least they are now selling their oil for gold. Saudi Arabia will never do that. Not until Uncle Sam says permission granted Saudi. The Zionist state of Kuwait, of Qatar will never do that. The Zionist monarchy of Saudi Arabia will never do that. None of these puppies of the Zionist world, who today call themselves Muslim countries, none of them will do it unless the Zionists give permission to them.